Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. 3 blazing red suns hung suspended over the sky of Kaelith-7, a mining planet teetering on the edge of the galaxy, casting scorching rays like blades slicing through the thick red dust that cloaked the air. The atmosphere was heavy with the acrid stench of molten metal and parched minerals, mingling with the relentless roar of machinery grinding deep within the earth, a chaotic world where life itself was throttled by greed. Here, the name Selara echoed like a chilling curse, the last remnant of the legendary Titan race from the distant Perseus arm, towering over 25 feet, her deep blue skin shimmering like molten pearl, her silver eyes pupilless and radiant as dead stars blazing with an otherworldly fire. She was a vision of terrifying power, a monster, coveted by the mining corporations not to be revered, but to be shackled, exploited, her colossal body stripped for every ounce of value it could yield. Yet to Captain Marcus Kane, a grizzled veteran of Earth's United Defense Force, she was no object of fear or possession. As his heavy metal boots struck the planet's surface, red dust rising like dried blood under the harsh light, he felt a deep tremor, not a threat, but the call of a captive soul, a destiny smoldering in silence, waiting to be unleashed. Marcus had no desire to set foot in this hellhole. Kaelith-7 was a cesspit of corruption, a place where rare minerals were clawed from the ground with blood, where lives were worth less than a shard of rock. His battlesuit, forged from a silver-gray alloy resistant to extreme pressure and heat, creaked like breaking bones as he stepped from the shuttle Eclipse. The glare of the 3 suns hammered against the metal, illuminating his rugged frame, short black hair dusted with grit, and piercing blue eyes revealed as he yanked off his helmet with a decisive snap. Those eyes, his secret weapon, cut through everything, unyielding, as if they could strip lies bare with a single glance. He despised this place, the metallic tang in the air, the guttural laughter of smugglers, the whole damn stench of it. But duty was duty. Inspect, report, leave. Nothing more. "Welcome to Kaelith-7, Captain!" A chirpy voice interrupted his thoughts. Seth, a small creature with pale yellow skin and long, pointed ears twitching like spearheads, bowed awkwardly. "I'm Zeth, your liaison. The mining coalition is thrilled to have an Earth representative here to discuss mutual benefits." Marcus nodded curtly, his short-trimmed beard framing a scowl he didn't bother hiding. "Cut the pleasantries. Take me to the mining site. I don't have time." His grip tightened on the edge of his helmet, knuckles widening. Zeth gave a nervous laugh, ears quivering like dry leaves in the wind. "Of course, Captain. But first, would you like to see something special? A rare opportunity. I'm not here for amusement," Marcus snapped, his eyes flashing with fire. "Not a game," Zeth blurted, his spindly hands rubbing together in excitement. "We've captured the last surviving Titan, a magnificent specimen, tame as can be, I swear." "Titan?" Marcus's brow furrowed, his voice dropping like a stone. "The giants from the Perseus arm? Extinct ages ago." "Almost." Zeth nodded eagerly, his bulging eyes gleaming. "That's why she's worth more than gold. A living treasure. Want to meet her?" Marcus's lips pressed into a thin line, ready to refuse. But a strange sensation like a whisper from the shadows held him back. He fixed Zeth with a stare sharp as a dagger. "Lead the way." Zeth guided Marcus through the winding tunnels burrowed deep into Kaelith-7, where the air grew frigid, seeping through the insulation of his suit. The walls were rough, jagged stone, reinforced with dull metal beams streaked with rust. The distant rumble of mining machinery reverberated, blending with the howl of wind through narrow crevices. At last they entered a colossal chamber, so vast Marcus had to crane his neck to take it in. Towering black metal pillars, dozens of meters high, rose from floor to ceiling like artificial trees in a man-made forest. And there, at the center, bound by energy chains that hissed and crackled like a wounded beast's growl, stood a being beyond imagination. She loomed at least 25 feet tall, her form humanoid yet magnified to an unreal scale. Her deep blue skin shimmered like pearl under the chamber's harsh artificial light, a cascade of silver hair flowing down like a molten waterfall, partially veiling her bare body not by choice, but by the cruelty of captors who'd stripped her of all dignity. Yet what stopped Marcus cold wasn't her size or appearance, it was her eyes. Pure silver, devoid of pupils or irises, they burned with a sharp, fathomless intelligence, piercing his soul as if she could see every hidden corner he never dared confess, even to himself. "Magnificent, isn't she?" Zeth chirped, his voice brimming with pride, misreading Marcus's silence entirely. "We found her in an abandoned ship on the system's edge, an ancient Titan wreck, nearly disintegrated. Took dozens of energy tugs to subdue her, but the profit potential? Unthinkable. Collectors across the galaxy would trade a planet to own her." Marcus didn't reply. Blood rushed to his face, not from shame at her nakedness, but from a searing rage igniting in his chest. This wasn't a specimen. This was a prison. A slave. A sentient being stripped of honor. He turned to Zeth, his voice hard as forged steel. "Get out." "But Captain," Zeth stammered, ears trembling. "She's dangerous. We can't leave you alone. Out!" Marcus roared, stepping forward, making Zeth flinch back. His eyes blazed, carrying the shadow of a man who'd faced down Zorath fleets in the Saturn Ring, who'd walked out of battles that left others as ash. "I've stared into the barrels of Kran plasma cannons and lived. I can handle myself. Go!" Zeth swallowed hard, his bulging eyes wide with panic. He opened his mouth to protest, but Marcus's glare silenced him. With a final stumble, he scurried away, short legs pattering out of the chamber, leaving Marcus alone with the captive giant. He took a deep breath, reining in the fury boiling within. Then he approached her, slow and deliberate, hands raised in a gesture of peace. Her silver eyes tracked his every step, not with hostility or menace, but with curiosity and a profound sorrow he felt without understanding why. As he drew closer, he noticed faint patterns etched into her blue skin, intricate, swirling lines like a map of a lost civilization, perhaps ritual tattoos or a natural mark of her kind. "I'm Captain Marcus Kane," he said, his voice soft but firm, holding her gaze. "And I don't buy for a second that you're just some mindless beast they stumbled across." She tilted her head, a slow, deliberate motion laden with meaning, as if weighing him. Then, to his quiet lack of surprise, she spoke. Her voice was deep and melodic, like waves crashing on an alien shore, carrying a mystical cadence he couldn't place, unlike any language he'd ever heard. "You're different from the others who come to gawk at me," she said. "They look with greed or fear. You look with anger, but not at me." "Why?" Marcus nodded, a door creaking open in his mind. "Because this is wrong. Your people once sailed the stars, built ships that crossed thousands of light years. You're not an animal to be caged and paraded like this." "Once," she agreed, her tones sinking into a mournful melody. "Now I'm one of the last. I am Selara." "Selara," Marcus repeated, the name rolling off his tongue like a vowel. "How long have they held you here?" "Time blurs in this place," she replied, shifting slightly, the energy chains crackling like faint thunder. "Many cycles of your standard years, I think. 10, perhaps more. I stopped counting when the star's light could no longer reach me." She paused, her silver eyes locking onto him. "Why are you here, Marcus Kane? Surely not just to offer kind words to a monster in chains? No one calls you a monster in front of me." He shot back, his voice firm as an oath. Then, driven by an impulse he couldn't explain, he stepped closer, close enough that she could touch him if she chose, a distance any sane man would call reckless. "May I?" He raised a hand, gesturing to her massive arm, the nearest part he could reach without climbing. Selara blinked, her silver eyes widening slightly in surprise. She studied him for a moment, as if probing his intent, then gave a faint nod. Marcus inhaled, pressing his gloved hand against her blue skin. It was warm, smooth as woven silk, its delicate texture sending a shiver through him. A subtle tremor rippled through her towering frame, as if his touch had stirred something long dormant. "It's been a long time," she whispered, her voice nearly dissolving into the air, "since anyone touched me with gentleness." That moment a thread binding two alien souls was shattered by the clatter of hurried footsteps and a loud voice echoing from the entrance. Marcus stepped back, though his heart resisted the retreat. Seth reappeared, trailed by 3 coalition staff in gray mining uniforms, their eyes flickering between unease and suspicion. "Captain, we need to proceed with the inspection now," Seth said, his voice quivering, glancing at Selara as if she might break free at any second. "Of course," Marcus replied smoothly, his face snapping into the emotionless mask honed through years of combat and negotiation. But as he turned to leave, he caught Selara's gaze one last time. Her silver eyes watched him silently, and he gave a slight nod, a small gesture, but heavy with an unspoken promise. He'd come to Kaelith-7 to negotiate mining rights, but now he'd found a greater mission, one that would change them both forever. In the days that followed, Marcus became a phantom within Kaelith-7's mining complex. He played the part of a meticulous inspector, poring over every detail, the groaning behemoths of machinery tearing into deep shafts, the containers brimming with minerals that glowed red like congealed blood. The sensors in his battlesuit, powered by cutting-edge AI, cataloged it all: the guard shift rotations, security protocols riddled with exploitable flaws, the intricate power grids sprawling like a giant web. But his mind kept drifting back to Selara, trapped in that subterranean chamber where natural light never pierced. He found excuses to return to her cell often, citing concerns about the structural integrity of the support pillars, a plausible lie, as the metal columns did tremble whenever her energy chains pulsed. The guards, initially wary of his presence, grew lax. They chuckled among themselves, dismissing the Earth Captain as an eccentric meddler fixated on trivialities. Their complacency was exactly what Marcus needed a crack to pry open. "You come back often, little warrior," Selara remarked during one visit, her melodic voice tinged with amusement, warming the frigid space. The chains hummed softly as she turned to face him, her silver hair glinting like captive starlight. "Don't your kind have a saying about curiosity and danger? Something like, too much of it leads to trouble?" Marcus grinned, running a hand over his short beard in a familiar gesture. "We do. Curiosity killed the cat. But we've got another one: do what's right, damn the consequences." "Oh, the nobility of humans," she said, tilting her head, her silver eyes sparkling as if studying a strange but captivating creature. "Your kind is a marvel, small but fearless. Others come here and cower when I so much as shift. You walk in like you own the room." "Size isn't everything," Marcus replied, flashing a roguish smile that drew a laugh from her, a sound like music resonating off the cold metal walls. "Indeed it's not," she agreed, her gaze sweeping over his silver-gray suit with quiet admiration. "Though I must say, you cut a striking figure in that armor. The others wear bulky enviro suits or flowing robes, pathetic things. You dress like a true warrior." "Because I am one," Marcus said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. "And I've noticed something about those chains: they draw power from the facility's main grid, not a standalone source. A glaring weakness, if someone knows how to exploit it." Selara's expression didn't shift, but her silver eyes flared with unmistakable interest. "Is that so? How careless of them. Almost as careless as letting us be alone this often." "They're getting cocky," Marcus said, his hand brushing her arm, a gesture that had become instinct between them. This time, his fingers traced a faint, swirling pattern on her blue skin, lines curving like rivers on a map, hinting at stories he could only imagine. "These markings, they tell a tale, don't they?" She shivered faintly under his touch, as if it unearthed something buried too long. "They record a titan's defining moments," she said, her voice softening to a sacred murmur. "Victories in battle, losses too deep to forget, and love, those rare times when the heart defies all barriers." She paused, her tone lingering on that final word. "Though I never thought I'd find any of that here, in this darkness." Marcus paused his hand, looking up at her. Her silver eyes met his, and in that instant, he felt an invisible bond snap into place, something wild, illogical, but undeniable. "Selara," he said, his voice low but steady, "you don't have to say it. I feel it too, this connection, impossible as it might be, stupid as it might be. It's real. So do I, she whispered, her voice so faint it nearly melted into the hum of the chains. But Marcus, what you're planning, it's dangerous. If they catch you, they won't. He cut in, flashing the confident grin he'd used to rally troops before battles deemed unwinnable. That smile left her momentarily stunned, a spark of long-lost hope igniting in her eyes. I need you to believe anything's possible. For me. For us. The clatter of approaching boots shattered the moment. Marcus stepped back swiftly, feigning interest in a nearby pillar as a guard entered, plasma rifle at the ready. Captain Kane, the guard barked, voice dry as dust. The directors request your presence at dinner tonight. They want to discuss inspection progress. I'll be there. Marcus nodded, his tone polished to perfection. As the guard left, he stole one last glance at Selara. Tomorrow night, the backup systems go down for maintenance at 2 a.m. local time. Power'll flicker for 4 minutes, enough for a titan like you to break everything. Her eyes twinkled with mischief, a rare smile curving her lips. More than enough for a warrior like you to disable a few critical things, right? Sleep well, Selara, he said as he exited, a teasing edge in his voice. Tomorrow's gonna be a hell of a day. That night, in a temporary quarters high within the facility, Marcus sat alone under the dim glow of a wall-mounted plasma lamp. He activated the holographic interface on his battlesuit, reviewing the facility's layout one final time. The suit's AI, dubbed Athena, had calculated 3 viable escape routes and optimal timings for each phase of his plan. Everything seemed in place, yet a nagging unease clung to him, a shadow whispering that eyes were watching from the dark. A sharp chime from his personal comms device broke his focus. A routine message from Earth Command, requesting a status update. Marcus crafted a careful reply, detailing the mining operations with dry numbers and data, omitting any mention of Selara or his brewing scheme. He knew the stakes. If caught, he'd face a court-martial, but some causes outweighed career, outweighed life itself. Humanity didn't bow to tyranny, not while he still breathed. He thought of Selara's gaze unflinching, not with fear or disgust at his small stature compared to her, but with a growing trust, a warmth he'd never felt in all his lonely years among the stars. He recalled the feel of her skin beneath his hand, warm and alive, etched with patterns that spoke of a civilization humanity could only dream of rivaling. Titans and humans had never been allies, nor true enemies, just fleeting travelers crossing paths on rare trade routes across the galaxy's arms. Now, Selara was something more, a spark of a fading race, a chance for mankind to bridge the void with something greater. The doors slammed open without warning. Marcus sprang to his feet, hands snapping to the plasma pistol at his hip. But it wasn't a guard or a coalition suit who stepped in. It was Szeth, his pointed ears quaking violently, bulging eyes wide with panic. Captain? Szeth hissed, voice trembling. I have to tell you, they know. Marcus narrowed his eyes, grip steady on the pistol but not drawing it. Know what? Your plan. Szeth edged closer, voice dropping as if the walls could hear. I overheard Director Core briefing the security team tonight. They've suspected you since you started visiting the Titan too often. They bugged her chamber, everything you've said to her, they've heard. His heart pounded, but Marcus kept his face a mask of calm, a skill forged in battles where panic meant death. Then why are you here spilling this to me? You're their lapdog. Szeth shook his head furiously. Not entirely. I work for the Coalition because I had no choice, my family's buried in their debt. But I don't agree with what they're doing to her. I heard her speak of her people, her losses. I don't want to be part of this anymore. Marcus studied him, searching for the lie. It could be truth or a trap. If they know, why haven't they moved? They want to catch you in the act, Szeth said. Core's orders, let you roam free until tomorrow night, then spring a special ops team to nab you and her when you try to free her. They'll frame you as a traitor to Earth, make your accident look clean. Marcus clenched his jaw. His plan was compromised but not dead. If Szeth was legit, he still had a window to pivot. Fine, he said, voice icy. If you're in, prove it. Get me the ops team's layout positions, weapons, timing. Seth nodded, fumbling a small device from his pocket and beaming the data to Marcus's interface. They'll set the trap at the chamber's main exit. 12 operatives, heavy plasma rifles, shock grenades. Core's overseeing it from the central control room. Marcus scanned the intel, mind racing to retool his strategy. Thanks, he said curtly. Now get out before they smell a rat. Seth bolted as fast as he'd come, leaving Marcus alone with a new calculus. Trust was a gamble, but humans had built empires on worse odds. He wouldn't let them win. Not the Coalition, not fate itself. The maintenance cycle was slated for 2 a.m. local time. Marcus arrived 2 hours early, stepping into Selara's chamber with the same cool stride he'd worn each visit. But the air was different tonight. The usual guards were gone, replaced by 6 figures in sleek combat armor, plasma weapons gleaming in their hands. His suit's sensors pinged active scans they were hunting, and he was the prey. Captain Kane, a gravelly voice rasped from behind a pillar. Director Core emerged, a red-scaled creature with slit-pupiled eyes glinting coldly, hands clasped behind his back in smug assurance. Convenient timing. We were just discussing your fascination with this specimen. Marcus kept his expression stone cold, though his pulse hammered. This chamber's stability affects facility safety. That's my job. Of course, Core said, pupils narrowing like a serpent's. And I suppose your constant security sweeps and cozy chats with her are part of that duty too. Selara stood motionless in her chains, but her silver eyes flared with worry as they met Marcus's. He felt her tension, a silent plea for him to run. But running wasn't in his blood. Humans didn't flee, they fought. He stepped closer to her, positioning himself between her and the guards like a living shield. You know this is wrong, he said, voice hard as steel. She's sentient, not some asset for you to trade. Wrong? Core barked a laugh, dry as grinding stone. Captain, frontier morality's a luxury we don't indulge. The Coalition's profits outweigh your childish ideals. If Earth won't act, they won't. Marcus cut in, sharp as a blade. Because you're about to have an unfortunate accident during inspection. Careless, getting too close to a feral specimen, right? The guards raised their weapons in unison. His suit logged 6 targeting locks on him, 2 more on Selara. Behind him, she tensed, the chains crackling louder than ever. I'm sorry, little warrior, she whispered, voice thick with pain. They knew all along. Don't apologize, Marcus said softly, then louder. Director Core, I forgot to mention something. Oh? Core tilted his head, a flicker of amusement in his tone. What's that? Marcus grinned, a predator's smile, the kind he'd flashed before delivering killing blows in war. I lied about the maintenance window. In an instant, he triggered a small device palmed in his hand, a jury-rigged jammer he'd cobbled from suit spares. The room plunged into darkness as every system shorted out, the chains hummed, choking to silence. His suit snapped to combat mode, infrared sensors painting the chamber in stark clarity. The guards' weapons veered wildly in the blackout, plasma bolts spraying chaotically, slamming into walls and pillars. Actually, it's now, he shouted, launching a salvo of flash grenades from his suit's shoulder compartment. Blinding light erupted, sowing panic among the ops team's screams, and stumbling boots filled the air. Chaos reigned. Selara's energy chains flickered, then died. She roared a sound that shook the chamber to its core, the bellow of a god too long imprisoned. With a lightning-fast sweep of her arm, she sent 3 guards crashing into the wall, their armor crumpling like tin. Core barked orders, but his voice drowned in the shriek of tearing metal as Selara ripped a pillar from the floor, dust billowing in a choking cloud. She hurled it at the entrance, sealing the ops team's reinforcements behind a wall of rubble. Marcus! She called, her voice booming over the din. The ceiling, it's giving! He was already moving, sensors confirming her warning. Without the chains, the chamber's stability faltered, cracks spidering across the stone overhead. Let's go! He yelled, activating his suit's emergency boost, propelling him toward her like an arrow. Before his words settled, Selara acted. She scooped him up in one massive hand, cradling him against her chest like a living bulwark. The sensation her raw power tempered by care made his heart race, even as danger closed in. She charged the far wall, shoulder smashing through stone like paper. Alarms wailed across the facility, red lights strobing in the corridors, but no one could match a freed Titan's speed. They burst into the main tunnel, a vast mining shaft stretching toward the surface, where hulking machines once clawed into Kaelith-7's heart. Selara sprinted, each stride quaking the ground, debris raining behind them like a chaotic storm. Marcus, secure in her grip, pulled up the holographic map on his suit. "Shuttle bay's 3 levels up," he said fast. "If we reach it, I can, no time." Selara's voice rumbled through her chest, overpowering the noise. "They'll lock it down now. But I've got a better idea." She veered sharply, barreling toward a solid stone wall at the tunnel's end. Marcus frowned, but his sensors caught what she'd sensed. It wasn't solid, just a thin shell masking an ancient lava tube stretching upward to the surface. "It'll be rough," she warned, tightening her hold to shield him. "I trust you," he said simply, voice unshaken. Selara smiled, a rare, radiant curve that cut through the dark like a star. Then she charged. The wall shattered under her might, revealing a wide natural shaft rising into shadow, a path to freedom. Without hesitation, she climbed, her massive hands and feet gripping the rugged stone with uncanny precision. Below, the facility shuddered, explosions echoing as overloaded power lines buried their pursuers in ruin. "They'll send ships after us," Marcus said as they neared the surface, a trace of worry in his tone. "Let them try," Selara replied, her voice alive with defiance and joy. "I've been chained too long. Never again." They emerged from the lava tube under the pale green glow of Kaelith-7's 3 moons, the night air biting but sweet with the taste of liberty. Selara stood tall, still holding Marcus close, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, sirens screamed from the wrecked facility, red lights pulsing like spilled blood against the sky. "We need to move," Marcus said, activating his suit's heat-cloaking mode. "I can mask our trail, but we have to." A deafening blast cut him off. A squad of small coalition warships lifted off from the facility's ruins, their searchlights slashing the ground like predatory eyes. But what froze Marcus wasn't the ships, it was a tiny figure staggering out of the tube behind them. "Zeth!" the yellow-skinned creature shouted, voice breaking in the wind. "Captain? Her! There!" His words died as a plasma beam from a warship struck his chest. Zeth crumpled, his frail body twitching once before going still, bulging eyes staring blankly at the sky. Marcus gritted his teeth, rage flaring anew. "Bastards!" Selara lowered him gently but swiftly to the ground. "He tried to warn us," she said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "They know where we're headed." Marcus nodded, pulling up his suit's data. "They've locked the shuttle bay, but there's another way, an old landing pad east of here, used for testing heavy transports. If we get there—" A mechanical roar interrupted him. From the horizon loomed a monstrous shape, not a ship, but a militarized mech, nearly Selara's height, armed with twin plasma cannons on its shoulders and an energy net poised in its claws. Kor stood in the cockpit atop it, his slit eyes gleaming with malice through the armored glass. "Captain Kane," Kor's voice boomed through amplifiers. "You think you can flee with that beast? She's Coalition property, and you'll pay for touching her." Selara roared, stepping in front of Marcus. "I belong to no one," she bellowed, her voice shaking the air. "I am Selara, last daughter of the Titans, and I'll never let you steal my freedom again." Kor sneered. "Freedom? You're a commodity, and he's a traitor. Kill them!" The mech charged, its net unfurling like a giant web. Selara shoved Marcus clear, but the net ensnared her. Electricity surged through her frame, drawing a pained roar as her massive arms thrashed futilely. Marcus lunged forward, activating the energy blade on his suit's arm, but Kor anticipated him. A plasma bolt from the main cannon forced him to roll aside. "Run, Marcus!" Selara cried through her agony. "Save yourself!" "Never!" he roared back, springing up with the speed of a man forged in a dozen wars. He leapt onto the mech's leg, scaling it with agility that defied its bulk. Core fired again, but Marcus dodged, his suit's predictive sensors guiding him through the barrage. He plunged the blade into the mech's shoulder joint, sparks flying as circuits fried. Selara seized the moment, summoning her strength to tear the net apart. With a sky-shaking roar, she rose and slammed a fist into the mech, toppling it. Core's cockpit shattered, and he screamed, clawing at the wreckage. She raised a foot not to crush, but to pin him in the debris, leaving him alive but helpless. Panting, she turned to Marcus. "You okay?" He nodded, stepping closer. "You're the one who just got zapped. Holding up?" She gave a faint smile. "I'm a Titan. I've endured worse." But the roar of engines from afar snapped them back, coalition ships closing in. Marcus grabbed her hand, small against hers, but firm with human resolve. "We're not done. East landing pad. Now." They tore across Kaelith-7's rugged terrain, Selara's every step a thunderous hammer blow shaking the earth. Red dust billowed in choking clouds, whipped by a searing wind that howled from the 3 moons hanging in the pitch-black sky, their pale green glow casting an eerie sheen over the landscape. Jagged rocks, sharp as time-worn blades, jutted from the ground, ready to shred anything that fell. Selara clutched Marcus tight against her chest, her massive hand a living shield, guarding him from flying shards and the dust-laden gusts that reeked of scorched minerals. Through his silver-gray suit, he felt the heat of her blue skin, a vibrant pulse of life stark against the cold desolation of this forsaken world. The eastern landing pad lay 60 kilometers ahead, beyond a vast wasteland known as the Burned Lands, a crimson desert stretching endlessly, its sands laced with faintly glowing minerals that scrambled signals, their only hope of evading the hunters stalking them from above. Selara moved with astonishing speed despite her towering bulk. Each stride spanned dozens of meters, cracking the ground beneath her crushing weight, trailing a swirling storm of red dust in her wake. Her breath came heavy, rumbling through her broad chest, her silver hair streaming like molten metal caught in the wind. Marcus, cradled in her grasp, glanced up through his visor, his sharp blue eyes tracing her face, those chiseled features, silver eyes dimming with exhaustion yet burning with resolve. He saw her pace falter, each step growing heavier, less certain than when they burst from the depths. "You holding up?" he asked, voice low but laced with concern, his hand tightening instinctively on his suit's chest plate as if he could lend her strength across the gulf between them. "The net's electricity," Selara replied, her voice trembling slightly, weaker than usual, like a breeze stifled between stone walls. "It sapped me, Marcus. The current lingers, a slow fire gnawing at my strength." She paused, drawing a deep breath, her silver eyes half closing as she fought the pain. "But I won't stop. Not when freedom's this close. I can taste it in the air, feel it under my feet." Marcus nodded, saying nothing more, but his gaze never left her. He knew the cost of endurance, had seen comrades fall on battlefields, felt his own limits fray against Zorith fleets. Yet in Selara, it was more than grit. It was a flame that refused to die, a defiance bigger than her colossal frame. Humanity had faced worse and won, and he'd be damned if he let her fight alone. He flicked on his suit's holographic interface, the map shimmering faintly in the dusty air, charting their jagged path to the east. 50 kilometers left," he said, voice steady as iron. "The Burned Lands will cover us. Those sands mess with radar. Keep this pace, and they'll lose us." They plunged into the Burned Lands, the red desert unfurling before them like a sea of dried blood. The sand sank beneath Selara's feet, sparking faint red glimmers as the minerals reacted, as if the ground itself lived and answered their presence. The wind surged, spinning sand into whirling eddies around her legs, coating Marcus's suit like a second skin. His sensors registered rising heat not from the sun's, but from the Earth's core, where mineral veins smoldered below. Before he could tweak his suit's settings, a mechanical growl tore through the silence, a trio of coalition warships cresting the horizon, their black silhouettes slicing the sky, searchlights slashing down like blades of light. Marcus triggered his suit's heat cloak, a ripple of invisible energy masking his small frame's signature. But he knew it was useless for Selara. Her giant form radiated heat like a living torch, a beacon no tech could hide. His sensors blared, locking onto 3 targeting signatures from above. "They're aiming for you," he said, voice cutting like a knife, fingers racing across his interface for a counter. "We need a move now." Selara turned, her silver eyes sweeping the desert, catching glints off the sands like fallen stars. She pointed to a deep ravine cutting through the burned lands, a shadowed gash just wide enough to conceal her bulk. "There," she said, voice hoarse but firm. "I can hide in that crevice. You go on, find the ship." "No," Marcus snapped, his tone steel-hard, eyes blazing as he locked onto her. "We go together or not at all. I'm not leaving you behind ever." His fist clenched, fury and resolve surging in his chest, the same fire that had carried him through wars with no escape. She stared at him, silver eyes shimmering with something unnameable: shock, gratitude, a flicker of warmth amid the storm. "You're stubborn as hell," she said, her voice softening, a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion, lighting her blue face like a dawn. "It's what humans do best." Marcus shot back, a small, cocksure grin tugging at his lips, a spark of defiance in the dark. "Now move!" They bolted for the ravine, Selara ducking low, her silver hair sweeping the ground, leaving faint trails in the glowing sand. The crevice's sheer stone walls rose like giant blades, shielding them from the lights above. The warship's engines roared overhead, but the sands began their work, mineral interference scrambling their signals, the mechanical growls growing disjointed, erratic. Marcus glanced up through his visor, catching one ship wobble, black smoke spewing before it crashed into the desert in a fiery explosion, sand and stone erupting in a crimson blaze. "To left," he said, checking his sensors, a grim satisfaction in his tone. "But they'll circle back. We've got to push harder." Selara nodded, but before she could step forward, she froze, her massive hand pressing to her abdomen, silver eyes widening as if struck by revelation. "Marcus," she whispered, voice quaking not with pain, but with a strange, profound awe. "I feel something." He spun to her, stepping close, blue eyes scanning her with urgent worry. "You hurt?" "The net's current still, no." She cut in, voice soft but certain, her silver gaze piercing his, glinting like moonlight on water. "Not pain. Something alive. A pulse I've never known." Her other hand joined the first, trembling fingers cradling her belly as if guarding a treasure. "I think the impossible has happened." Marcus frowned, activating his suit's medical scanner without breaking eye contact. A wave pulsed out, data flashing on his interface, and he froze. A second heartbeat, faint but steady, echoed from Selara, distinct from his own. His pulse raced as the truth hit. Their union in the cave, that wild, real moment amid darkness and danger, had sparked a new life, a child, half human, half titan, a miracle defying the galaxy's laws. "A wonder," Selara breathed, voice choking, tears streaking her blue cheeks, glistening like gems on the red sand. "The first new titan in centuries, a hope my people thought lost forever." Marcus stepped forward, pressing his gloved hand to her belly, feeling that tiny life through her warm skin. A surge of awe washed over him, a sensation he'd never known in all his star-scarred years. "Not impossible," he corrected gently, voice low and warm, eyes locked on hers. "Just never done before. Like everything between us, crazy, reckless, but real." She smiled, faint but radiant, a star breaking through a clouded night. He returned a small nod, hand lingering as if they shared a vow to shield that life. But the moment shattered as engines roared closer, a menacing hum cutting the air. The remaining ships circled back, their black shapes looming, lights blazing across the desert like relentless hunters. His sensors screamed heavy plasma cannons, mountain-piercing firepower, locked onto their ravine. "We're not through yet," Marcus said, voice snapping back to steel, hand dropping to check his map. "They brought the big guns, we move now." Selara straightened, weary but unbowed, silver eyes flaring with resolve. "Together," she said, firm as stone, her massive hand scooping him up again, ready to face the storm bearing down. Huddled in the ravine's depths within the burned lands, Marcus scanned the holographic interface on his suit, its faint blue lines flickering in the dust-choked air. The sand swirled around them, glowing softly from the minerals, but he knew it wouldn't hide them forever. "We can't keep running," he said, voice low and edged, fingers darting across the display to gauge their odds. "The eastern pad's 20 kilometers out, but at their speed, they'll blast us before we make it." He looked up, blue eyes cutting through his visor to meet Selara's silver gaze dimmed by fatigue, yet alight with an unbreakable will. Selara nodded, rising slowly, her towering frame shedding rock fragments from the ravine walls. The scars of her chains lingered on her blue skin, faint burns marking her captivity, but she stood defiant, silver hair whipping in the dusty wind like a banner of war. "Then we fight," she said, voice rough but resolute, her massive fist clenching with a tremor that promised ruin to anything in her path. Though her body quaked from the net's lingering shocks, though each breath rasped like a gale through the desert, she held her ground, a forgotten goddess of battle reborn. Marcus opened his mouth, hand brushing the energy blade on his suit, but a blinding explosion split the horizon, silencing his words. His sensors shrieked as one of the two coalition ships erupted in flames, a red inferno swallowing its hull, spiraling down to crash in a plume of black smoke. The impact thundered through the desert, drowning the wind, scattering sand like a blood-red rain. Marcus squinted, fist tightening on his suit, heart pounding. "What the hell was that?" he muttered, voice taut. From the ravine's shadows, 3 smaller craft streaked into view, moving with lethal grace. No coalition insignia marked them, only the emblem of the infamous Black Hawks, a predatory bird etched in stark black, wings razor-sharp across their scarred hulls. These ships were leaner, battle-worn, their plasma cannons glinting with menace. A cold, crisp voice crackled through their amplifiers, slicing the engine roar. "Captain Kane, if you're still breathing, answer me!" Marcus's brow furrowed, fingers snapping to his suit's comms, reflexes honed by war kicking in. "Who's this?" he demanded, voice hard with caution, eyes tracking the ships circling above, ready for a trap. "Colonel Elena Voss," the voice replied, cool and unyielding, roughened by years of combat. "We clashed at Saturn's ring, Kane. I owe you a life, and I hate debts. Heard you were stirring hell with the coalition on this rock, thought I'd see for myself. Looks like I timed it right." Her name hit like a bolt, dragging Marcus back to Saturn's ring, a sky ablaze with plasma and smoke, where he'd led his squad through Zorith lines to pull a pinned mercenary crew from a blast zone. Elena Voss, red hair cropped short, eyes like daggers, had gripped his hand amid the wreckage, swearing to repay him. He hadn't expected her to keep that vow, let alone arrive now, with death hovering overhead. "Elena," he said, a flicker of surprise giving way to focus. "Get us to the eastern pad. There's an old transport there, Stormbreaker. We need it to ditch this planet." "Done," Elena shot back, no hesitation. "Move fast, Kane. Coalition's calling reinforcements. I caught their signals 10 minutes ago. Clock's ticking." Her ship's engine screamed, the Black Hawks diving into the fray, plasma bolts flashing across the sky like a storm unleashed. Selara turned to Marcus, silver eyes wide, a fragile hope glinting within. "Your friend?" she asked, voice low with curiosity, her massive hand still cradling him close. "An old ally," Marcus said, a rare grin breaking through, eyes fixed on the aerial clash. "And our shot. Let's go." He pointed east, where the pad's faint outlines shimmered through the red haze. They burst from the ravine, Selara charging across the burned lands, each stride kicking up a dust cyclone that veiled their trail. Above, Elena's ships tangled with the last coalition craft, explosions lighting the desert night. A stray shot grazed near, blasting rock into the air, but Selara didn't flinch, her bulk weaving through the onslaught. Marcus, secure in her grip, shouted over the chaos. 5 kilometers! Hold this, and we're there! The Stormbreaker loomed as they reached the pad, a hulking, rusted transport from Kaelith-7's early days, big enough for Selara, its engines silent as a corpse. Marcus leapt from her hand, sprinting to the external controls, fingers hacking the system with a soldier's speed, cracking codes from wars past. "Get in the cargo hold!" he yelled, rousing the ship from its slumber. Selara climbed aboard, her frame rattling the metal floor, a groan echoing as she squeezed into the tight space. The Stormbreaker's engines roared to life, black smoke belching as it shuddered upward amid enemy fire. Marcus took the helm, hands on the controls, eyes on the radar. 2 more Coalition ships blinked on the horizon, but Elena's team held them at bay, buying just enough time for the Stormbreaker to plunge into Kaelith-7's asteroid belt, its rocky chaos cloaking their escape. "Elena," Marcus said over the comms, voice low but earnest. "Thanks. This debt's mine now." "Don't bet on it, Kane," she quipped, a smirk in her tone amid the blasts. "Call it even. Watch your back, the Coalition doesn't forget." Her ships peeled off, vanishing into the dark, leaving Marcus and Selara hurtling toward freedom. 3 months after fleeing Kaelith-7's asteroid belt, the Stormbreaker anchored around a verdant planet on the galaxy's edge, a pristine world unmapped by Coalition or Earth, a raw gem untouched by exploitation. The ship hung in low orbit, its rusted hull still under the gentle light of a lone star, reflecting off lush forests, shimmering rivers, and mist-veiled mountains sprawling below. The air was clean, sweet with grass and wildflowers, a stark reprieve from Kaelith-7's red dust and molten reek. Marcus stood on a gentle hill, his silver-gray suit shed for a simple cloth tunic, revealing a lean, battle-hardened frame now at ease, his short black hair ruffled by the breeze. Beside him, Selara sat, her colossal form blending into the landscape like a natural wonder, blue skin glinting faintly in the golden-orange sunset, silver eyes gazing at the horizon with a peace she'd never known in captivity. They'd begun building a home here, a sanctuary free of machinery's din, unshackled by energy chains or the Coalition's greedy stares. Their child, a girl with pale blue skin soft as faded pearl, her father's deep blue eyes grew swiftly within Selara, a miracle defying science and species alike. Marcus often rested his hand on her belly, feeling the gentle, fierce kicks of that tiny life, each one drawing a smile rare now, not the cold edge of war but warm, tender as sunlight through leaves. Selara, her massive hand stroking her abdomen, watched with silver eyes aglow with joy and disbelief, as if she couldn't fathom that after centuries of tightened despair, a new hope had sprouted from her reckless love with a human. But one afternoon, as the sunset painted the sky in vibrant orange and soft purple, Selara fell silent, her giant frame tensing unnaturally. Marcus, perched beside her on a flat stone, looked up instantly, blue eyes narrowing with worry. She turned to him, silver eyes shimmering with an emotion he couldn't name, not fear, not pain, but a deep, wrestling unease. "Marcus," she said, her warm voice trembling, softer than usual, like a breeze through tall trees. "I have to tell you the truth." He stood, stepping closer, hand brushing her massive arm, a habit born on Kaelith-7. "What truth?" he asked, voice low but edged with concern, eyes locked on hers, searching those silver depths for what lay beneath. Selara drew a deep breath, her broad chest rising and falling, silver hair swaying like a gleaming cascade. She looked out, past the green forests and misty peaks, as if seeing a place beyond their reach. "I'm not the last Titan," she confessed, voice small but clear, each word a stone rippling a still lake in Marcus's mind. "My people, a small group survived, hiding in the Perseus Arm's shadows, among the wrecks of ancient ships and dead worlds no one notices. When I was captured, it wasn't random. I was the decoy, a sacrifice to shield them, to convince the Coalition our kind was gone." Marcus stood rooted, breath catching, blue eyes widening as her words sank in like cold rain. He believed her the final ember of a grand race, a lone symbol of a lost age, and now this truth upended it all. Yet no anger or betrayal rose in him. Instead, a spark flared, hope, raw and bright. He stepped nearer, craning to meet her gaze, a smile flickering in his eyes. "Then we'll find them," he said, voice firm, unshaken, a promise carved in stone. "Our kid won't grow up alone. She'll have a family, not just us, but your people." Selara stared, silver eyes widening in shock, tears tracing her blue cheeks, sparkling like jewels on the soft earth. "You're not angry I kept this from you?" she asked, voice breaking, her massive hand trembling as if fearing he'd turn away. Angry? Marcus shook his head, his smile blooming, warm as the fading sun behind them. Selara, you threw yourself into hell to protect them, to keep a flicker of hope alive for your kind. How could I be mad at that? I'm proud, damn proud, and thrilled we've got something bigger to chase. He pressed his hand to her belly, feeling their child's pulse, voice dropping with fierce resolve. We'll find them. Together. She nodded, tears falling freely, but her smile shone like the first star piercing the dusk. She bent low, her massive hand lifting him gently, cradling him to her chest as she had in Kaelith-7's chaos, not to shield now, but to share joy and purpose. Marcus leaned into her, her blue skin's warmth enveloping him, her heartbeat merging with their child's in a symphony of life amid the cosmos. Word of them reached her as soon after, carried by signals Marcus sent from the Stormbreaker. Earth hailed them not just as an odd pair defying boundaries, but as a testament to a human truth: love could resurrect what seemed lost. Their tales spread across the stars, from space stations to distant worlds of a small man who dared touch a monster without fear, and a Titan goddess proving that humanity's heart could rekindle a race, heal a universe scarred by old wounds.